This is the reason why you should buy. And we're not asking the most important question, the reason why it was important for them, in their heart of hearts. Like, that's a sale. Then we're going to see results, the mindset, going into every opportunity, saying to yourself, I would love to have the business, but I don't need the business. When they talk about building their organization just through referral, that means they're missing it. The internet almost shut down because they're like, are you blind? Do you not know what's going on out there? Do you not see what's happening?
You just did 250,000 cold calls. Congratulations.
Oh, am I excited today to have you on today, Dylan Jahraus. I'm so excited to have you. Thank you so much for being here on the Pipe Podcast. And for those that haven't seen this in a while or have been following us and have followed every episode, the Pipe Podcast, of course, we concentrate on sales process, sales initiative, sales prospecting, and sales experiences. Our guest today, Dylan Jahraus, and we're going to be talking about like this journey that you made, from the corporate world and then kind of doing your own thing and really becoming, the entrepreneur that you are today. So I'm excited to talk about that. And I'm sure our listeners and those that are watching the podcast, have some questions on that, key strategies and all kinds of growth and success and tactics. But before we do that, let me hand it over to you for a minute. Why don't you tell, our listeners and viewers a little bit about yourself, and let's get into this, Dylan.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. This is my first live YouTube stream on someone else's platform. So I'm really excited. And so I'm in my early 30s. I live in Southern California. I'm a military spouse, and my entire background is corporate e-commerce. So I work for some big companies, and I studied business. I worked for Zappos and Zulily. So really on that buying product development side, moved up to Seattle, met a guy in the military. Now, I didn't realize at the time, but we would end up moving a lot. So that's how I found entrepreneurship. It was kind of not really by choice. I kind of fell into it, and I realized, wow, I really can do this. I can take everything I learned from corporate, apply it to this, and really have no ceiling on my earning potential. So it's been an amazing 7 years. Yeah.
That is so great. So let's talk about like this whole journey that you've had with the Etsy store, how you grew that on your own, and what kind of inspired you to do that. Like, just let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So people think that Etsy is like for crafters, for people who sit around and string, beads onto jewelry. And it's really so much more than that. I basically got married. I put something that I used in my wedding on Etsy. I just threw it up there like it was eBay or something. I was doing all these side hustles. Well, 2 months later, someone bought the thing, and I thought, oh my gosh, like now I have to figure out how to ship this to someone and make it. Like, I was not prepared to get the sale. And then a couple of months later, we're doing over 10,000 a month, and we did over $1 million in the first 5 years. We're about 1.7 now, and it really just took off from there. So I, made the decision to not go back to corporate and to really go all in with Etsy, using everything I learned from my corporate life, applying it to that, and saw very consistent results for that reason.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah. So let's talk about some of the things that, or maybe the challenges that you had at the beginning, some of the strategies that you had to put in place, maybe even some of the anchors that you had to kind of drive your success and run your own business. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. One thing, when I worked for Zappos, they're known for footwear. I was on the surf skate in that arena. Now, I am pretty girly girl, not into the surf skate world. And I'm selling skateboard shoes. Well, what I learned there was that you don't have to love what you're selling. that if you are a merchant and you know business principles and you know how to pull levers, you can sell anything. So in my Etsy shop, what I sell, I don't even like it. You guys, I don't even like it. But profitable customers like it. So what I learned was it's really important to target profitable customers. It doesn't matter if you like the product, really. You have to, somewhat resonate with it, but profitable customer segments with the right product mix, know how to pull the levers, and that's what I do, and that's what I teach.
Right, right. So I love it. I love talking about products in that way, and even with Sales Arbiter, when we're talking about your product, it's almost about how does this service or this product resonate with your prospect, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to loudly resonate for you,
Right.
but how does it resonate for your prospect? And so if you wanted to give like one piece of advice, right, to individuals that are either looking to start their own, their own Etsy store, or if they're looking to even start their own business, what were some of the trials that you went through that you would say, okay, listen, you really need to do this?
Yeah. I would say making sure that you have a customer in mind, not just putting together things you like or hope someone wants, because that's going to impact your branding. You want to know who you're selling to, even before you decide what you're selling. What problem are you solving? Is what you're selling actually have utility? If you're looking at starting on Etsy or selling anything online, I always recommend selling something that has utility or purpose, not going the route of frivolous items until you've really built a brand. At that point, it's much easier to sell, frivolous items, I call them, but start with something that solves a problem, has purpose and utility, and then go from there. And really just say yes to every customer request. Especially on Etsy, people are searching for things. And if someone messages you asking, can you make something for me? They've probably messaged several other people. That means they couldn't find it. So that's a problem you can solve. Maybe it's a hole in the marketplace. I did that with one product. I made over $500,000 on the one product just by saying yes.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh my goodness. That's great. That is so good. That's so good. So let's talk about, let's shift gears for a second, because, what we're really discussing is kind of what's happening in the e-commerce kind of world, right?
Yep.
And so let's talk a little bit more about that. Like what do you see, for this year? What do you see happening or changing in the e-commerce world? Like, what are some of the things that we should be focusing on there?
Yes. So, in 2020, everyone was home and a lot of people were putting up these Etsy shops, these side hustles. And, some were doing Amazon FBA or drop shipping. A lot did Etsy, and they're looking for passive income. Well, back then, the stimulus from the government, it truly was a stimulus with Etsy. It's not the same anymore. You have to do many, many different strategies to be more competitive now. And I think something people forget about is what I call the invisible playing field of customer service and the customer experience. That is a way that you can compete that your competitors don't really see. They can't really emulate unless they're shopping with you, of course. But that is something that you have to do now to compete. You've got to be about the experience. Think Chick-fil-A, right? Have that like Chick-fil-A or that Four Seasons experience. And I think that's essential to being successful now.
Yeah, that's really good. That's good. So then, and then also like kind of on the heels of that, because you said it a couple times, and I consider myself a good active listener, even though my wife would probably argue with that. She probably would argue with that comment. Okay. So, but here's the thing, you've said the hustle, you mentioned hustle a couple different times.
Yep.
Let's give the listeners and viewers, Dylan's, kind of definition of hustle. What does that look like in your world?
Yes. I mean, you have got to be relentless. If you have not read that book, Relentless, it is incredible. It'll light a fire under you for sure. But you have got to be willing to put in one more rep, go one more mile, stay up 1 hour later, wake up 1 hour earlier, and have a long enough time horizon to where you're not expecting to see results tomorrow. Give yourself at least a year of putting in that grind. And really, the only way to fail is to quit at something. That's what I really, really believe that, we're, at least here in America, like anyone can be a business owner. The only way to fail is to quit. And most people do. Most people do. Most people don't have what it takes now. So for me, I am relentless. I am just, the thing is, if you are that way, you realize over time and you prove to yourself how unstoppable you are. And if you're not inclined to be that way, definitely find a mentor who is. Here's the book. This is a really good one. If you feel like maybe you don't have an entrepreneurial background and you're feeling discouraged, there's another book called The Dip. We read this at Zappos, and that's a great one. If you are going through a slow time in your business, because it's really about kind of sticking it through when most people quit. And then you see a huge lift afterwards. So, really having that mentorship or having those resources accessible so you don't give up.
Yeah, it's so good. And listen, I hope the listeners and viewers are picking up on this, because one of the things that we talk about, like even when we take companies, we as Sales Arbiter and our organization, we take companies through this, full-blown training program that we have. We talk about the same concepts that you're talking about now, being relentless, putting in the time, just really digging deep to try to, and I say try because some people can't do it. Like some people just don't have the makeup to do it, but to try to, be successful in that role, whatever role they've chosen. And, the one thing I got to tell you, Dylan, and we can talk a little bit about like maybe some of your employees and some of the things challenges that you've had filling specific roles with your organization. But the one thing I can't teach is work ethic.
Right.
Like can't teach it. Right. What experience have you had with that, if any?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. We now have a company of about 25 people where we are teaching Etsy sellers how to scale their businesses. And, honestly, one of my mentors, Alex Hermosi, he gave me some advice on who to hire and how to find these people, which was invaluable. And it's really about, finding people who know more than you, and who, one question I really learned to ask in interviews is, tell me about, this is terrible, but like, tell me about your work-life balance. Like what kind of hours do you work? What would you say about your work ethic? And, just getting that, hearing someone, you can tell if they're speaking authentically or not. If they're just knowing you, you can tell.
Right. That's right.
So really interviewing more than you think you should in the beginning. Don't pick the first person you meet. You'll see a difference in work ethic. And what I do now with interviews, I give them a project. Get this back to me. I don't give them a deadline. And I do that on purpose because I want to know who has the urgency in their pace. So I learned a lot about that, but I think you get better with hiring over time. I'm seeing that even in just the last year of building this out. I hired my first employee for this coaching business in April, and now we have like 25 people. So learned a lot, but yeah, work ethic is something like you really can't inspire in someone.
Right. Yeah. It's and it is really that. It really is that. You have to have that drive and that self. You have to have that self drive, determination, and motivation. Right. And it's always one of those things that, because I coached my oldest son, and now I'm coaching my youngest son in baseball. Right. And, I equate so many things to sports, which is interesting. I think because there is truly, an alignment between how you're growing your business, or how typically people, especially high performers, perform in the world of sports. And sometimes we see people like even on our team, they have such natural ability, they're natural athletes, they have natural talent, but if they don't work at it, right? And if you're working off the court, as hard as you're working on the court and in the game, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. And, so one of the things that you had said also, where you said you talked about these two books, right? And I think, we put one of them up, Relentless, that you had talked about. And how important is it to continue to kind of keep your finger on the pulse of, what's happening, not just in e-commerce, not just in your industry, but to continue to drive and even self-educate in certain areas? Like, are there certain things that you do every month? Do you try to read a book a month, or do you try to listen to a sales or a growth and strategy, podcast, a weekly? Like, what are some of the things that you kind of become habitual for you, because you know that this is going to keep your iron hot, or keep your sword sharp?
Yeah. I would say it's paying attention to what leaders in the space are doing. I don't want to be late to something, because if you can get in something early, YouTube is a great example of that. I was following those YouTubers of 2009, 2010, religiously, and if I had only gotten in back then, like, what could I have been now? So, testing things early in the game, I think, that's very important. Also, having goals for different areas of the business every single month. I like to have a short time horizon on those goals, just to make sure things are getting done quickly. I'm kind of, instead of an end of week person, I'm kind of like end of day, like, let's make things happen. Um, and yeah, that is very helpful, and paying attention to people in other arenas as well. Like, we teach in the Etsy space, but what's going on in the Shopify space and the Amazon space that hasn't yet happened in the Etsy space? That's something I look to as well as ways to grow your business and grow your revenue in new ways, not just, because I sell a course and coaching, I'm always going to do that. What kind of software play could we make to get different types of revenue streams coming in? So that's just an example, not being complacent and not just doing what's working. But I kind of like think about it like a duck. You're like peaceful and calm on the top, but like paddling underneath. Very slow. Yeah.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
Those are great analogies. So let's move to this piece of it, because I think our viewers and listeners also want to hear a little bit more about what are some of the, how have you managed failure? Like, everything that you've done, it's impossible for everything that you do to be a success. So
Right.
not only how you've managed, like, through some of those failures or those challenges that you've had, but what kept you going? Like, what kept you motivated and kept you moving forward?
Yeah. So, I don't know if I would call this a failure, but one of the biggest disappointments happened in my business in August. And we had been planning, from basically March through the summer to be part of an acquisition. We were going to be acquired, and it fell through in mid-August. And I was devastated because I thought that acquisition was going to be the answer to my problems. I thought having this partner, they know the answers that I have not been able to figure out myself. And I was so crushed. I was really crushed because I had this light at the end of the tunnel. We're like a day or two out from closing on the deal, and it fell through. And then I thought, oh my gosh, now I had at that time about a team of 8 to 9. I thought, now it's on me. Like, I've got to figure it out. Failure is not an option. So I learned, part of that I was intimidated by was building a team, finding the operator, finding all the executive positions, filling those. And I just basically found a recruiter, and I buckled down. I said, I'm going to do this. It's not going to be perfect, and I don't really know what I'm doing, but not doing it's not an option. So I just kind of sucked it up and made it happen. Yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
a great story. That's a great story. Now, you talked about, hey, and again, I hope my wife is listening to this podcast, because I really am listening. So you talked about, it's not going to be perfect, right?
Yeah.
And so many times when I talk and when we're consulting with companies and we're talking with them about their vision and where they want to go, sometimes the leadership, they let perfect, and I say it this way: don't let good be the enemy of perfection, right? Don't let good be the enemy of perfection. So, and don't let perfection be the enemy of good. Thank you.
There you go.
I was a little dyslexic there for a minute. So don't let perfection be the enemy of good. So then, how does that play out when you're at that tipping point and you're like, and you know that you've got to do something that's not only transformational for your business, but you can't let perfection be the enemy of good. How does that resonate with you?
Yeah. I think about the opportunity cost of waiting, of delaying. I'm more of a fail fast, learn quickly, because the longer it takes you to learn something, the more
Mhm.
money you're losing, the more opportunities you're missing.
Right.
So yes, the next day, okay, I've got a recruiter, I've got a job spec, we're going for it. I'm not going to delay. And so that is my mentality. In terms of perfection, yes, I see it all the time, even with Etsy sellers. My course students, they, overthinking so much to where I think overthinking can be a procrastination tool where
Mhm.
it's an easy way out. I just need to think about this more. I just need to plan this out more. Okay. No, you need to take action. Like,
Right.
yeah.
That is so
Yeah.
good. That's so good.
Yeah.
Okay, so now where does Dylan Jahraus go next? Like, what's next on the horizon for you? Like, what are you looking to do
Mhm.
next? I mean, listen, I'll split the world with you. We can split it 50-50. I'm good with that, right? But but what happens next for Dylan?
Yeah. So I am kind of a go big or go home person. I'm all or nothing, black or white. I think a lot of successful entrepreneurs are that way, whether
Mhm.
it's like healthy or not.
Yeah.
So my mentality is, what are other ways to grow this business? Yes, I could, we have about 2,000 students right now that we're working with, but is just doubling it to 4,000 students? Is that what we want? Or how can we serve these people in more ways? And how can we get in front of different audience as well? So we're looking at a potential software play, maybe acquiring a software, if not acquiring, building this year.
Great.
That's something. So kind of recurring revenue, is kind of subscription based. We're looking at doing that.
Mhm.
And beyond that, growing the team, creating more consistency. We're looking at doing ads for the very first time, which this
Mhm.
up until now, it's been all organic. So
Right.
ads, that's a whole nother game that I'm excited to learn about and then teach people what I learned.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And how about this whole trend that's happening now with AI and, how that's kind of, becoming a really, it's becoming a thing and it's becoming a thing really quickly. And talk about being in front of, like you had said with YouTube, where would I be today if I would have started this like 10 years ago, right?
Right.
So how are you starting to think about, AI being used, or are you thinking about how to use more of artificial intelligence tools to help
Yeah.
you grow your business as well?
Yeah, a great example. What we do, we have a YouTube channel. I think over 60,000 subscribers at this point. But we, even tools that can cut up your long form into short form, like different automations, taking some of the legwork out of things. Now, I don't believe in just letting AI do what it does and take whatever it spits out. I think that's what a lot of people make mistakes with. They're just, whether it be copy or email marketing, like people can tell, especially with words. And you've got to, I still believe in putting that human touch on something.
Mhm.
And the thing is, I think this can be a competitive advantage for everyone because a lot of people just take what AI gives them, publish that. If you put that human touch on it and, a voice on it that is consistent with your brand, I think that's a great way to stand out that most people are going to be too lazy to do now.
That's
Yeah.
so good. You're right. Just take it as is, publish it, get it done. Then I'm done, right? I'm
Yeah.
done, right?
Yeah.
And so let's talk a little bit before we get into the Sales Arbiter 7. This is really because I'm truly interested in what you're doing and how you're growing the business, and it sounds extraordinary. Um, so when you talk about putting that personal touch,
Mhm.
right, and having that human connection, even though it's happening digitally, right?
Yeah.
You're in California. I'm in Atlanta, right? We're having this great conversation. I think it's great. You might not think so. It's okay. All right. All right. But we're having this, we're talking business and growth and opportunity and all these things, right? But how do you do that? Like when you're putting out so much digital content, when you're doing all of these things, how can you still preserve that connection and that engagement with your brand? Like, let's talk a little bit about that, Dylan.
Yeah. And I've learned this a lot. We hired an agency in the last year to, take over some of our social media and our content. And then we brought it in-house. And now we have someone new coming on actually on Monday. And it's so easy to kind of lose that brand authenticity. And I think if you miss that part, like if you do not have that connection with your customers, like you're not going to build a cult-like following. You won't. Like you just won't. You can have a fluff brand. There's so many fluff brands out there right now that just, they're very basic. Like this is what I think I should say. This is what I think is like PC. This is what is trendy this week. I'm just going to say what all these other people are saying and I'm going to grow like they are. Well, I kind of look at this like if you're an Olympic athlete, or if you want to become an Olympic athlete, you don't study what the Olympic athletes are doing now. You look at what they did to get there. So if you're trying to build a brand, you're not just going to copy what the big brands are doing. You have to look at what they did to get there. So, and that's all through connection. It really is. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Last one before we get into the Sales Arbiter 7. I thought I said the last one was, but it's not. Okay. All right. So you caught me. You caught me in a lie. Okay. So what would you recommend for people that are really looking, to grow their business? What's important with them growing their business this year? And if there are 3 things that they should be doing, for themselves or for their businesses, let's get Dylan's take on that.
Yeah, I think number 1 is to force the actions. And by that, I mean, don't wait to do something until you feel like it. You're not going to feel like it. Like, surprise, you're not. So like an example of this, I was like, oh, I really need to get this photo shoot booked. Okay, I just called her and booked it for tomorrow. That forced me to get ready and to do the thing. So back yourself into a corner. Really back yourself into a corner. Say yes, commit to it, have some accountability. You've got to show up. So force the actions and the feelings will follow and the success will follow. So that's number 1. Just, there's a list of things you should do for your business. I know everyone knows that. They know, oh, I'm going to get to that next month, next quarter. Just do it now. Give yourself a short deadline. Another thing I would say is really build a team of A players. And if they're not A players, get them out because whether that sounds too ruthless or what, but really the weakest player on your team will bring you down, and it shows other people what you will tolerate as well. And if you are a small team, you really have to make sure, like, it's like a basketball team. There's 5 starters, like they've all got to be, deserving of that position. So, don't be afraid to replace someone because there's people out there who are a better fit. That's another thing. And then lastly, I would say probably to remember to not be consistent with the wrong things. I see this all the time. People just say, I just need to keep being consistent. I just need to keep posting. I just need to keep, doing this or doing this kind of lead generation. Well, if it's not working for you, you shouldn't be consistent with it. So really make sure to be consistent with the right things, because being consistent with the wrong things and telling yourself that you'll get a different result, I mean, that's crazy,
Right.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you for all that. And I'm sure that our listeners, viewers, they're just getting a ton of information from you today. And thank you for sharing that. So here's the part of the show that people really, love. Okay. So it's called the Sales Arbiter 7. And this is based on our friend James Lipton. And he used to have this show called Inside the Actor's Studio. And he would have famous, actors on his show, and they would talk about what their experiences have been in certain movies or their experiences, and then he would ask them questions at the end. So, so I'd like to start with your permission. I'd like to just go ahead and jump into the Sales Arbiter 7, and whatever comes to mind, that you'd like to share with the listeners and viewers, that would be great. Okay. So the first one, what is your favorite word?
Oh, my favorite word, probably unstoppable. Yeah, unstoppable, because that's like been my motto the last year. Unstoppable. And I think everyone is, it's within them, but they've just gotta, self-discipline. Yeah. So unstoppable.
I love it. I love it. Okay. What's your least favorite word?
Oh my gosh. Probably mommy, I think I'm going to throw up. No. No, I have kids. I have 2 kids, 2 and 6. And oh my gosh. Yeah. No, not that, but probably, a phrase, I'll get to it tomorrow. That's one that I'll have it done tomorrow, because I know it's probably not going to happen,
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. It's probably not going to happen. That's great. Mm-hmm. That's great. What's something that could make your day?
Oh my goodness. Probably my son, at nights. I'm Christian, and when he says prayers like at dinner time, that just makes my day. He's 6, and 6-year-olds, they have no filter. So that makes my day. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. A prayer from your son. That's wonderful. What's something that could ruin your day?
I've found, even so, in the corporate world, when your kids are sick, I don't know how many of your listeners are parents, but when your kids are sick, it can throw off your whole day. And now, as a one-person entrepreneur, you can deal with that. But now, when I have a team of a lot of meetings, a lot of appointments, when my kids are sick and home unexpectedly, that can really throw things off.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So, okay, next one. So what sound or noise do you love?
Definitely the water, the waves. We're going to Hawaii next Friday. So now my requirement for staying in Airbnbs is it has to be within listening distance of the water.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. That's right. And is it just, it's calming for you? It's just something that it's the sound that you enjoy. What is it? What is that?
So it's so calming, and it makes you realize, how small you are and how insignificant certain things actually are that you might be fretting about or worrying about. We're just, there's things out here that are so much bigger than us and our little inconveniences that we're dealing with.
It's so good. It's so good. What sound or noise do you hate?
Oh man, easy. The 3 a.m. screaming from my 2-year-old.
That was easy. Boy, you picked that one out really fast.
Yeah, that's easy. Oh man, yeah, because 3 a.m. it's like, who's gonna go in there and get him? Yeah. So
that's funny. Yeah. That is really funny. And then it's a toss up between you and your husband. You're like, you're kicking him.
Oh, he's so good. He's so good. Yeah. He's military guy. Takes a lot for the team.
That's great. That's wonderful. Last one. So what profession other than your own would you have liked to attempt?
Yes. So this is easy. Definitely medicine. I wanted so badly to be able to be pre-med. I tried, but I faint really easily. I just pass out so easily. Reading about veins and arteries. I'm not going to pass out now, but like,
should we be talking about it? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, just thinking about it. But my sister, she actually suffered cardiac arrest when she was a teenager, and she was in a coma, and she now has a brain injury. And I have family with addiction, and it's just been, I grew up with a lot of entrepreneurs did. And I think I wanted to go into psychiatry. I wanted to go to Stanford and become a psychiatrist and really study the brain and everything. And I just couldn't stomach it. So I went business, made sense.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And now you're probably like, wow, that other stuff would have been so much easier. like, you're like, what am I doing? When did I make the decision to be an entrepreneur? Why did I do that?
Yeah. But, now looking at the medical field, you see it's so different now. Like your earning potential as an entrepreneur is so much higher than just being, just a family doctor or something. Yeah, I would say this was definitely the right path.
That's great. That's great. Well, listen, I can't thank you enough for being on the show today. I'm sure that a lot of our listeners and viewers, they got a ton of information from us today, and you're welcome back anytime. When's the book going to come out? What's the when is the what's that look like? Is there anything that we should be talking about there before we tell people how to get in touch with you and what's the best way for them to contact you as well?
Yes, our most recent launch was a couple weeks ago. We just launched our brand new course, the Ultimate Etsy course plus one-on-one coaching. It's all private one-on-one coaching. It's unlimited, which is what people really love. It's truly unlimited 24/7 coaching. Wow. And we took all the feedback from 2,000 people from our first course and used that to build the new one. And people are loving it. So that was our most recent launch a couple weeks ago.
Okay, good. Now, what's the best way to get in touch with you, with your organization? If people are interested, they're saying, yeah, I want to make the leap, I want to do this. What's the best way for that?
Yeah, definitely check out the YouTube channel. That's where you can see a lot of the journey. It's just Dylan Jahraus on YouTube. And then on Instagram, we love to connect. So we're, open to like DMing. We can chat back and forth. I would love to hear about your business and how that's going, what you're working on. And so Instagram and YouTube are great places to connect. You got it. Well, again, Dylan, thanks for being on today. I love it. I close every show like this. And I always say, keep selling and have fun doing it. Thanks again, Dylan. We'll see you soon. Thank you. All right. Bye-bye. This is the reason why you should buy. And we're not asking the most important question, the reason why it was important for them, in their heart of hearts. Like, that's a sale. Then we're going to see results, the mindset. Going into every opportunity, saying to yourself, I would love to have the business, but I don't need the business. When they talk about building their organization just through referral, that means they're missing it. The internet almost shut down because they're like, are you blind? Do you not know what's going on out there? Do you not see what's happening? You just did 200.